Empire State Development, Howard Zemsky, Lieutenant Governor Kathy Hochul, and please welcome Governor Andrew Cuomo.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. And it is a good afternoon. It's a pleasure for me to be back in Buffalo, Western New York. Pleasure to be at Buffalo State. Let me acknowledge, yeah, go ahead, more than that. Buffalo State has had some really prestigious alumni, like Mayor Byron Brown. Give him a round of applause. I'm going to go through what we did in the state on our budget. They call it a budget. It's really not a budget. It's really a whole action plan for the state, laws, policy, programs. And we're excited about that. And then you'll hear from Mr. Howard Zemsky, Mr. Western New York himself. Let's give him a round of applause. Then you'll hear from our great county executive, Mark Poloncarz. And then we saved the Buff State alumni for last, Mayor Byron Brown. Give him another round of applause. We also have with us our state budget director who worked out the whole budget. He's the architect and he's a master of the trade, Robert Mahica. Let's give him a round of applause. We have John Majori, who always puts Buffalo first, whatever we're doing. Let's give him a round of applause. And our fantastic Lieutenant Governor Kathy Hochul is with us today. So we went through a long couple of months and hard couple of months in the state, because the truth is the state today, like states across this country, are facing significant forces that are threatening the very viability of the state of New York. We have a federal government that is constantly assaulting our state. The changes in the tax code that they made, where they eliminated the deductibility of state and local taxes, so-called SALT, will cost us $15 billion more in taxes. And remember, New York is the #1 donor state to the federal government. Just think about this. Federal government, 10 states donate into the federal pot, and 40 states take out of the federal pot. Of the 10 donor states, New York is the #1 donor state, $36 million more every year than we get back. And the SALT reforms increases the 36 by $15 billion. It was an egregious political taking, and we're fighting it every way we can. I'm organizing governors all across the nation. I'm going to our Congress to repeal it, but it is a significant assault on the state of New York. We are still investing heavily in the upstate New York economy that for many years was not given the attention that it deserves. And I'm very proud to say that my administration has invested more in upstate New York than any administration in the history of the state of New York, and we're continuing to do that. We had to reform our criminal justice system that has been unfair for many, many years. Racially impacting many people unfairly. We did that. We have significant infrastructure problems, public transit problems that had to be addressed, and we did that also. We have the new phenomenon of extreme weather, and all of this in an environment of political extremism, where you have a body politic, where people are frustrated, they're annoyed, they're angry. Everybody has an opinion. It's a very strong opinion. Nobody wants to compromise. So it made a very difficult, if not toxic, situation for the state of New York. But when you have big problems, they require big solutions, and that's what we laid out. We started in December, before I even took office. We had a 20-point agenda, the most aggressive agenda that I've ever put together for the state of New York, but it went right at these big problems. And as part of that agenda, we wanted the most ambitious, most aggressive agenda for Western New York ever, as they say, and that's exactly what we did. This is the next evolution of the Buffalo Billion. It expands our vision, our goal, and our reach. Buffalo Billion was like the first stage on a rocket, right? We had to get up, we had to lift the economy, we had to get the economy moving, we had to create jobs, create opportunity, create hope, create optimism, get people believing once again in Western New York, changing that attitude where all the dialogue wasn't about the good old days of Western New York, good old days when we had Bethlehem Steel, about the past. We had to get people thinking about the future and believing in the future and believing that the future was going to happen here. And that's what the Buffalo Billion was. A big economic boost, the biggest in history, to get people to believe once again. Remember where we were a few years ago when we talked about investing in Buffalo's future, and everybody had that blank look of incredulity because they heard it so many times and nothing happened. Well, we did it, and things did happen, and there is a new energy, and that's what the Buffalo Billion did, and now we can take it even to a new level. Frankly, a more sophisticated level where we are investing in more areas simultaneously to take us even to a new level. The good news is we got it all done. We got the agenda done, we got the budget done, we got the plan done, and we got Western New York more funding than ever before in the history of the state of New York. Overall, $12.7 billion from the state of New York for Western New York in economic development, in transportation, in academia, in quality of life, that has a broad reach into literally all the main engines and areas of the Western New York economy. Starting with economic development, we made the 2% property tax cap permanent, so people know that they have faith and confidence, despite SALT, despite everything else that's going on in the economy. Property taxes are capped at 2%. That has already saved close to $2 billion for the taxpayers of Western New York. Over the next 10 years, it will save Western New York taxpayers $7 billion. And that's a lot of money and relief they needed. We're going to cut taxes for the middle class because the federal government did a very good job of cutting taxes for the rich and the rich corporations. They didn't do that good a job for the middle class. But the state of New York will. We've been bringing down income taxes steadily. We bring them down again for incomes up to $300,000. $40,000 to $150,000 goes down to 5.5%. $150,000 to $300,000 goes down to 6%. So real tax relief for the working families of the state of New York. We have $212 million for aid to municipalities, smaller governments that need ongoing assistance, an additional $750 million for economic development funding for our regional economic development councils, run by ESD and Mr. Zemsky. Western New York has done very well in those competitions, already winning over $550 million. And my guess is your luck isn't going to change. We have another $10 million investment for the winner of the Western New York Downtown Revitalization Initiative, which is taking our downtowns in upstate New York that saw a vacation of people leaving, businesses leaving out to the suburbs, Now we're realizing that we should have stayed in those downtown areas and redeveloped them rather than continuing the concentric circles of sprawl. And now we're reinvesting into downtown areas because the millennials want to be there, the infrastructure is there, the nightlife is there, there's a real market, and we're investing in those downtown areas once again. When it comes to transportation, Metro Rail is the centerpiece of the Buffalo community. For years, it hasn't had the investment it needs. That is changing $106 million in capital funding, the first major rehabilitation since 1984. The funding will also undertake the study for the Metro Rail extension that we're all very excited about. $58 million for the NFTA, an increase of $5 million to increase bus and rail transportation. In 2016, I challenged Mayor Byron Brown because I'm from the Get It Done School of Government, get it done fast, and why can't we get it done tomorrow? And there was a question about where to locate a new Buffalo train station. And sometimes in Buffalo, we've had prolonged conversations about infrastructure projects. I don't want to anyone to take it personally. But if that conversation on the Peace Bridge went on any longer, so I said to Mayor Byron Brown, I'll make you a deal. If you make the decision in 6 months, we'll fund the study with $1 million, and then we will provide funding for the Buffalo train station. He got it done. We'll uphold our end of the budget, $25 million for the new multimodal Buffalo train station. $16 million more for road improvements. When it comes to academia, we've increased aid to education up to $2.4 billion, the highest level in history for K-12, a 3% increase from last year. A first in this budget, more transparency and equity. We want to know where the funding is going on a school-by-school basis. Not just to a district, because we write a check to a district, the district then does the distribution as the school district sees fit. I want to make sure that the funds are going to the schools that need it most. So we want funding. We want those school districts to tell us exactly how much each school is getting. And we want the school districts to prioritize funding to the poorer schools because they have the greater need. And that's what we should have been doing for years. We have $500 million in capital investments just in the immediate area here, Albright Knox, Buffalo Psychiatric Center, the Richardson Olmsted Campus, Elmwood Avenue Bridge, and $250 million for Buffalo State College. We have Excelsior scholarships, which will be life-changing for people. This says for families making up to $125,000. Your child can go to a SUNY school tuition-free. Just think what that means. It means no child has to worry about, if I get into college, can I afford it? No mother, no father has to worry about, can I afford my child's college tuition? Can I do that for my child? Up to $125,000, which sounds like a lot of money. But if you have to pay a college tuition or 2 college tuitions, it's not. Those children can go tuition-free. That will affect 15,000 students in Western New York, and that's done in this budget. We're also protecting student borrowers from abuse, the student lending industry. I did many investigations of this when I was Attorney General. It is amazing how the student loan industry has abused those students. That ends in this budget. We've also, in this budget, funded the Jose Peralta Dream Act. Jose Peralta is a state senator who lost his life to fund education for dreamers. When it comes to the environment, we have the most aggressive Green New Deal of any state in the United States, 100% carbon-free electricity by the year 2040. That is the most aggressive goal. $500 million more for clean water, which is becoming more and more of a problem. $300 million for our Environmental Protection Fund. We are going to ban plastic bags, and this is long overdue. In terms of quality of life, we have a President of the United States who wants to end the Affordable Care Act. It's called Obamacare, as you know, and I think a big part of it is just the President's disdain for anything named Obamacare. His plan is to end it, but he doesn't have a plan for a new health plan. And he hasn't even called for a new health plan until after the next election. How convenient if you're a politician. It's not that convenient if you need health care between now and then. What we have done in the state is we have codified the protections of the Affordable Care Act into state law, so those protections will continue. People with pre-existing conditions, the essential health plan, cost sharing for preventive care, limiting annual lifetime coverage, and codifying the New York health insurance marketplace. So the President may end health care, but it doesn't end in the state of New York. $10 million to end the scourge of opioid abuse, which is taking more and more young lives. And sweeping criminal justice reform. The criminal justice system is symbolized by Lady Justice. She wears a blindfold and she holds the scale of justice, because scale is blind and the scale is to weigh the merits, weigh the equity. How we evolved into a cash bail system that says basically, if you can pay the bail, if you have the cash, if you're wealthy, you can walk out. But if you're not wealthy, then you have to sit in jail. And you can sit in jail for a year or two before you ever get before a judge. That, my friends, is not a justice system. It was not supposed to be that the rich walk and the poor sit. That had to end. It should have been ended decades ago. We ended cash bail for 90% of the cases. That's 25,000 people in Western New York who will now be free until they have their day in court. We also have speedy trial reforms, because the Constitution said a speedy trial. It didn't say you sit in jail for 1, 2, 3 years before you have your day in court. And discovery reform, so you actually know what you are charged with. And the prosecutor says, this is what I know, this is what I've been told, here are the facts, so you can prepare a defense. We also passed the Child Victims Act, because it is no longer a question as to whether or not children have been sexually abused by people in authority. We know that full well. We know it in Buffalo. You've had more and more revelations about sexual abuse. Those victims deserve justice, and they deserve their day in court. And this law will give it to them finally. We have the most aggressive women's agenda in the United States of America. We have a president who wants to have a Supreme Court roll back Roe v. Wade. We have codified Roe v. Wade in state law. So even if it's rolled back in the Supreme Court, it exists in the state of New York. Mandatory coverage for IVF and egg freezing for women. Too many women who can't afford it and have fertility issues didn't have the protection. That changes now. Expanded rape shield protection. We've reformed the domestic violence requirements and increased funding for child care programs by $26 billion so women can have their child cared for and still pursue a career. And we're funding our transformative projects across Western New York. I said we're now getting more sophisticated with a broader reach in our approach. And in this plan, we emphasize progress on the east side of Buffalo. Why? Because the greatest success is shared success. And yes, Buffalo is doing well, but we don't consider it success until everyone everywhere is doing well, because we believe the greatest feast has the most people at the table, and we are investing in the Buffalo East Side. $4 million for MLK Park, $2.2 billion for the restoration project at the Buffalo Museum of Science, $4 million for the Broadway Market, $2 million for the Northland Workforce Training Center, where we'll have a microgrid and training opportunities in the solar industry, which is going to be the jobs of the future. $7 million for the Michigan Street African American Heritage Corridor, $5 million for the East Side Workforce Training Program, teaching real estate development skills so we can help develop the East Side. $5 million for the historic preservation of buildings on the East Side, many of which are spectacular. $10 million for East Side small business renovations, and $10 million for the city of Buffalo to do street improvements on the East Side in targeted areas. We're also expanding our reach to parks, to nature, to arts, to tourism. $11 million, almost $12 million for the Western New York State Parks and Tourism Destination, $10 million for public access to the Buffalo Blueway, $3 million for the Buffalo Philharmonic, $35 million for Buffalo Manufacturing Works to help manufacturers expanding into new markets, $5 million to rehabilitate the Central Terminal, which is a magnificent building and a magnificent asset that we want to preserve for Buffalo, $18 million to expand Albright Knox, $40 million to continue our investment in Canal Side, which has been a phenomenal, phenomenal success and economic growth engine. Think big. That's what we said about the Buffalo Billion. Think big, right? It's not about yesterday, it's about tomorrow. And tomorrow is about thinking big. It's just as easy or just as hard to do a big project as it is to do a small project. So think big. Thinking big is let's fund a national competition to develop alternatives to the Buffalo Skyway corridor. Cities all across this nation made the same mistake. When I was HUD secretary and I worked literally in every state in the nation, we always made the same mistake. We blocked ourselves from the water. We built highways along the water. We built elevated highways along the water. Why? Because we thought that was the easy place to do it along the shoreline. Yes, but now our development pattern is reversed, and now the major asset is the water, and we have walled ourselves off from access to the water. You have to reverse that trend. And that's a problem that we have with the Skyway. There are many options that you could consider with the Skyway. You could keep the Skyway and develop the area beneath it. Some cities have done that. You can transform the Skyway into a High Line. There's a High Line in New York City that was an elevated roadway rail line that they converted into a walking path entertainment center that has attracted people literally from around the world. You could take it down and redevelop the area. You could leave it and come up with additional access to the outer harbor. So there are a lot of options. We need creativity. We need some exciting ideas. We'll have a national competition. We will pay for the winners of the national competition, $25 for third place, $50 for second, and $100,000 for the winning design. So we'll incentivize the best urban planners in the nation, the best architects and design firms in the nation to actually compete. We will have a panel that will make the selection. It will be chaired by Mr. Howard Zemsky with a picture when he was 14 years old. We'll have a panel of people who are expert in these areas. The panel will hear all of the ideas in the competition. And once again, we are going to make it happen. And our goal is to have this competition completed in 6 months. Let's find the best plan, and then let's do the best plan and continue growing Buffalo. This is the most aggressive plan for Buffalo that we've ever done. In many ways, it's the most aggressive plan we've done statewide, but we haven't forgotten the fundamentals, and the fundamentals that are driving this state are our fiscal integrity and our fiscal moderation. This state today has more private sector jobs than ever before in the history of the state of New York, 8.2 million jobs, because we respect the economy and we respect business growth, and we do that by keeping government spending down and taxes down. And even with all these great projects, we still have kept our state spending down to record low increases, less than 2% per year, which, believe it or not, is a record in modern political history. Now, I know some people in the room say, how can that be? You're a Democrat. Democrats just love to tax and spend. I resent that thought. It's stereotypical. And it happens not to be true, because there are Democrats who can count also. Our rate of spending over the past 9 years has been 1.5% per year increase. Governor George Pataki, Republican, over 12 years, averaged 5.2. Mario Cuomo, 6.9. Hugh Carey, 7.9. Nelson Rockefeller, great Republican. But boy, did he love to spend money. 11% year-to-year annual increases. Why did New York have high taxes for so many years? Because New York spent a lot of money. If you are spending more money every year, the only way you get the money to meet that cost is by raising taxes. And that's why the taxes got out of control. We have controlled the spending, and that's why you see taxes coming down now all across the board. In terms of getting the job done, you remember the old days where the state was supposed to get the budget done by April 1, and it never did. It almost became like a running joke, and you'd have late budgets year after year after year, and school districts couldn't plan, and the mayor wouldn't know how much he's getting, and the county executive wouldn't know how much he's getting. I take deadlines seriously. The state, by law, is supposed to do a budget by April 1. People are supposed to pay their taxes by April 15th. Nobody would tolerate it if you went past April 15th and you said, well, I had an argument with my spouse. We can't agree on how much to pay. That wouldn't fly. You shouldn't accept that from your government either. And if you have a budget deadline of April 1, get it done by April 1. We have done that on 9 consecutive budgets. You have to go back before Governor Harriman to find that record. and I don't even know who was the governor before Governor Harriman. That's how long ago it is. So I want to applaud the Senate and the Assembly for getting the job done for the 9th year in the row. So this plan builds on the progress and the momentum that we have made all across Western New York. All the arrows are finally pointed in the right direction. The number of jobs are up, taxes are down, unemployment is down. The number of young people coming back to Buffalo, staying in Buffalo is up, and there is no better barometer of success that when young people are coming in and you're attracting and you're keeping. The hope and optimism are up. People know that this is a different Buffalo. They know that it's a different economic climate than it's ever been. Buffalo is red hot, and this plan will fuel the fire of Buffalo's rebirth because you ain't seen nothing yet. We're going even higher. Thank you, and God bless you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Howard Zemsky.